Panasonic Lumix GM5, a camera designed for the more demanding photographer. But the extra tech means the GM5 brings with it a bigger footprint than its predecessor. At first glance the front-on face looks similar to the original, and it could fool you into thinking it's a compact camera. Indeed, its dimensions are smaller than the high-end Panasonic Lumix LX100. Don't overdo the lens. For this review we received the GM5 with the 12 to 35 mm f/2.8 lens, in among some others, which frankly felt at odds with the camera. First, the lens in this instance is the more expensive component than the body. Second, the scale of such an optic dwarfs the body and makes it feel a bit like one doesn't belong with the other. They do, of course, which is part of the point of having an interchangeable lens micro four thirds camera. However, as with the original GM1, pop the 12 to 32 mm kit lens on, which is far smaller, and there's a sense of compact camera about the GM5 that's really great. Indeed, we suspect many of its owners will never swap out the lens, or perhaps instead opt for a small-scale prime. There is a £899 15 mm Leica kit option, despite the full spectrum of micro four thirds optics being available. Small is desirable, but the GM5 is close to the limit of what works. To the rear, the four-way D-pad, which has ditched its embedded rotational dial control, now with a separate thumbwheel to the rear, making use of the additional height in the design, is positioned rather close to the LCD screen. Playback and function buttons sat next to the new thumbwheel are better spaced apart, but are still designed for small fingers. Despite squeezing an electronic viewfinder into the mix, the GM5 is still a camera that fits in the palm of a hand. It successfully pairs touch-screen controls with a physical mode dial and drive mode dial, each tweaked compared to their respective GM1 equivalents. The only issue with the touch screen is the same we had with the GM1, the buttons are so close to screen's edge that some accidental presses aren't always out of the question. All in all, the size difference between original GM1 and then GM5 isn't hugely significant. The viewfinder protrusion adds 5.7 mm to make a 36 mm depth, while the height increases by 5.4 mm to 59.5 mm in total, and given those figures, the 211 grams weight without a lens attached, a mere 7 grams more than the GM1, is impressive. Small in scale, yet with plenty of performance depth and speed, the GM5 is a capable little camera. A top favorite of ours is the Pinpoint autofocus mode, which zooms into the focus area to 100% scale so you can see that accurate focus has been made exactly where you want it. Does what it says on the tin. The already speedy GM1 offered a 120 frames per second refresh rate, that's 120 instances in any given second to derive focus. The GM5 doubles that to 240 fps, therefore being yet more adept to quickly zip a given subject into focus. Panasonic claims 0.06 seconds, with the 14 to 140 mm and 14 to 42 mm lenses, but, frankly, it's so fast that anybody would struggle to notice the difference between the two. Set to single autofocus, the Panasonic system is up there with the best when in terms of speed. It's near instant to focus. Panasonic seems to have settled on the sensor found in the GX7 as its go-to 16 megapixel offering, as that's what appears in both the GM1 and GM5, among other models. There may be tweaks and adjustments at play, there has to be given the Venus engine and its 240 fps refresh, as touched upon earlier, but if you have experience of the GM1 then it's much the same to be found here. Which is no bad thing. We're not talking total imaging perfection, as the colors are sometimes a little on the cool side and metering has a tendency to slide towards slight underexposure in our experience. This is likely due to overcast skies and icy ground colors throwing proceedings off the scent, but it's a generally good all-round show. The Panasonic Lumix GM5 is an interesting and accomplished system camera, but while the GM1 arrived at a time when it could slot into the market and outshine many high-end compacts, the more tech-laden GM5 exists in a different context. The advance of high-end compacts being one point, the existing, and larger, Lumix GX7 being another. Both those alternatives may bite into this particular viewfinder-featured system camera's potential. Saying that, the GM5 builds from many of the highs of the earlier GM1, and if you select the right lens and stick with it, which may sound like an odd comment to make about an interchangeable lens camera, then the GM5 is positioned to beat high-end compacts at a similar price point. The responsive touchscreen controls, super-fast autofocus system and decent overall image quality are also definite highs. It's just a shame the limited battery life remains a low point and the viewfinder isn't the best on offer. If you want a camera with an occasional use viewfinder to take everywhere, then the GM5 is man enough for the job, and paired with a prime lens at small scale should make it the ideal.